Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Matthews. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the director for Washington State's Office of Equity. Welcome to Equity in Session. What is Equity in Session? Well, I have been inspired by legislators around the nation who are recording videos and sharing them with people so that our legislative processes make more sense and you actually feel like as a community member, you can be involved and really impact our systems to create a government that's really of the people, by the people, and for the people. So this is the Office of Equity's attempt to do something similar. I would love if you attended these sessions and let us know how you think we're doing. Does this make sense? Do we need to change something? From my perspective, here's the intent, here's the purpose, but is it landing? So this is what we're doing. And for our first session, I really want to talk about my first week of session. So for any of you who don't know, I am the new director of the Office of Equity. I took over in May, and this is my first session as director. And I've never experienced a legislative session as a director. And so everything's new for me. And my goal is to learn and to not make any huge mistakes. And so I figured I would share my experience with you to let you know that if you feel the same way I did, that you're not alone. So the first day was Monday, January 8th. That was the first day of our Washington State's legislative session, and it was opening ceremony. Now, what I didn't realize is both the House of Representatives, and the Senate they both have opening ceremonies. I thought it would just be one, so I was like, oh, I'll get ready and go to one. And so I'm walking through, but I don't realize that I end up in one session and not the other. I don't realize there's two. So just so you know, if you ever attend an opening ceremony, there are two, one for the House and one for the Senate. I went to the House's opening ceremony, and I guess I would say that I was first nervous and excited. So it was a good thing, but I was also nervous because I didn't know the rules. I don't know the environment, the culture. How am I supposed to show up? Where do I go even? And so I was really worried in this digital environment that we are, that, was I going to say or do something outside of the protocol or what's accepted and then make some big goof, or I embarrass myself or go viral? I think we're all a little bit worried about going viral, and not for a good thing, right? So that's what I was worried about. And I didn't know where to go. And so I went to the legislative building, and I was kind of just walking around trying to figure out, they have an information center. So I stopped there and they told me the floor to go. So then I came up and I saw, a space where it looked like people were going into with metal detectors and stuff. And I said, so is this the opening ceremony? And they were like, yeah. And so then they told me, okay, you can come in here with this, can't bring water bottles in there. Just a note to tell you, because I try to bring mine and that's not accepted. You can't bring it in there. So I was like, okay, they let me leave it out of the room, so I didn't have to throw it away or anything like that. And so I could drink it when I left. And so I made it in, and I think the one thing is, it's hard to admit that you don't know what to do or where to go. But in this instance, it served me well, because I probably would still be walking around there right now if I had not asked. And what was helpful, or what I really walked away from feeling, is although there was a couple people, and just a small number, who weren't really kind to me, who weren't trying to help me be successful in my first experience, the overwhelming majority of people were kind, did take the time, did explain things to me, did offer a seat right? Because it's packed. I'm like, where do I sit? I don't know where to sit. And people, they help you. People want to help. Most people want to help. And so if you're not sure what to do or where to go, just ask. And I'm pretty positive somebody will help you out. I really, really want to just especially call out the security officers because I asked them a ton of questions. I was really curious, well, what do we do? Why do we do this? Well, what's this like? I'm thinking at some point, at some point, I will need to be confirmed in a Senate hearing, kind of like nationally, but without the theatrics that happens nationally. And the security officers were so um, gracious to me and gave me so much of the history. Many of them have been there for decades, and they just gave me information and openly shared. And I just want to say, if you're watching, thank you, thank you. It really, really meant a lot to me. I've got so much from. I love history, so it was my major when I was in undergraduate school, um, and I just love learning about history. And so just understanding, how things happened before or why things are the way they are today is the things I like hearing about. And they just were gracious with their time and shared with me. The second day, I felt a little more comfortable, right? Because I have navigated. And after I went to the houses ceremony, they had a break. And then we went to, and then I was like, oh, this is not, then I realized there were two hearings or opening ceremonies. And so I went to the Senate as well. So then I was like, okay, I got that. So the second day I felt a little more comfortable walking around and kind of knowing where I need to go. I attended the Governor Inslee's State of the State address. That was so beautiful, beautifully done. They had great, amazing presenters and performers. And I felt really inspired. I think the opening ceremony and the State of the State really served to inspire us to greatness. One of the things that I remember hearing is Washingtonians expect progress. They expect us to be better. They expect us to lead. I love that because that's the truth, right? That's why our legislators are elected to positions. That's why we have, state government officials, state leaders like me, because Washingtonians expect us to serve them, expect us to um, remove barriers for them. And so I just think it was beautifully done and well done to everybody who put in a lot of effort to make sure everything flowed, to make sure everything made sense. I think this is going to be a little bit long of a video, so I will learn to. I talk a lot. It's just me. So I'm going to try to bring it down next time because the people I've seen do this, they talk for like a minute and a half, and I'm sure this is more than a minute and a half. So anyway, my takeaway, here's what I want to share with you is that there are a lot of moving pieces in legislative session. Things are going on all the time. And especially for legislators, they don't really have a lot of time to spend with just one person. So you have to be prepared. I think it's just best to be prepared, be as prepared as possible, and then just go with the flow. You got to go with the flow, right? So I had a rough plan about here's what I want to do. And sometimes I ended up in a different place than what I'd planned to be, but I just rolled with it. And you know what? I learned no matter where I learned. And I had a really good experience. So sometimes it's just about being in this space where you can connect with people, where you can network, you can be with people who are trying to make a difference. And the good thing is that I really believe our legislators in Washington state want to help. So I heard a lot of statistics about Washington state this past week. Washington state is numbered this at this, and we've got, this amount of people in this, and this percentage of people doing this. So while their focus may be primarily on the people who elected them, they want what's best for Washington on a whole. And I really appreciate that because one of the Office of Equity's values is Ubuntu. I am because we are. It means that I can, focus on a group of people, but that we're all connected. Our destinies are aligned. And so I can't just rely on the only focusing on those people. That what happens to my neighbors the other people in Washington, the people who I'm in Western Washington, what happens to the people in Eastern Washington affects me, right? So I really must care and be concerned about everybody if I want to impact whoever the specific person is in front of me right now, right? I really have to care about everyone. So I'm really glad because I believe our legislators feel the same way. If you're planning on coming to the Capitol campus during legislative session, I also want to let you know that it's okay to be intimidated. And I've been in I've been in state government for 15 years. This is my first session where I've been more active, and I was intimidated. I didn't know what to do. So if you feel that way, it's okay. It's okay. So did I. The marble walls are beautiful. It's really a historic building. People are here hurrying up from here to there and rushing all over the place. Uh, and it can make you kind of feel small. And I'm 5'11", so I'm not small. So if feeling small, is a big deal for me when I feel, oh my gosh, I'm so tiny because I'm used to just taking up so much space. So if you're unsure of what to do, ask, because more often than not, people will help you.
Everyone, Omar Santana-Gomez, he, him pronouns, and I am staff with your Washington State Office of Equity. Um, I'm assisting with this legislative session. This is the first time I've dived this deep into what session is. And I have to say, I'm echoing what Director Matthews mentioned about feeling intimidated, because those first few days that I was there attending meetings, I felt like everybody was looking at me. It's almost like that dream that people talk about where you're in the classroom and you forgot to put pants on, and everybody's just staring at you like, what are you doing? And that's how I felt. I felt like I was in a room feeling like I didn't belong for whatever reason. Well, for lots of reasons. I haven't ever been in a space like that. A lot of people didn't look like me, and it just felt like, I was out of place. But those feelings, I think, were in part because I felt intimidated and because it was new to me. Because in reality, while there were things that were being done, like people assuming that everybody in the room knew what they were talking about, maybe people not introducing themselves and saying where they're from and offering those kind of introductions before they shared information, that could have been helpful. But I think those assumptions, hopefully, we'll be able to break those down a little bit so we can start not making assumptions and making people feel like they belong in certain spaces. Um, but like I mentioned, I think a lot of that was in my head because as soon as I started asking questions, as soon as I started to introduce myself and share with folks a little bit about the office and a little bit about myself, people were very welcoming. People were very knowledgeable, and they didn't mind sharing that knowledge in a lot of ways. Shout out to all our other agencies within the governor's office, and it's been really helpful being able to partner and meet folks in person and to understand their body of work and sharing again what our body of work is within our office and how we can support each other. And so while the first week or so I have felt intimidated in a lot of ways, I felt out of place, um, and needing to fight some of those formalities around dress codes and respectability. I'm still navigating those, and it's going to be a journey for me. And maybe we can break some of that down because I think a lot of that is rooted in some of those white supremacist notions. So hopefully we can undo some of that. But in the meantime, I am making myself at home. I'm making my space in this area, even though I feel like I'm not in the right place. I'm gonna tell myself and keep telling myself that I belong. And I think folks that are new to the process, that's what I encourage you, is that we might feel intimidated. Megan mentioned like the enormity of the legislative building itself and the history there. And it can be scary, but feeling like, that is your space. That is the people's house. Is that what they say? Like that is your space and make it your own. If you have questions, ask questions, um, uh, and just be curious. And that's kind of what I'm learning so far is to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in that space. Um, but beyond that, it's really building on those connections, getting questions ready because people have limited time. This legislative session it's a short session, as I keep hearing, and things are happening really quickly. And so being as prepared as possible for things has been really helpful for me. That's something I've been really learning, is how to be best prepared, and scheduling things out as much as possible. And so yeah, that's kind of what I'm learning so far, learning to take up space. And that's, I think, what I'll leave you all with. And this is our first legislative update video, and so maybe I can do a little intro for Patrick. Patrick Stickney, who is helping us also in the Office of Equity, is going to do our first bills to watch. And so I'm going to send it over to Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, everyone.
Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Stickney and I use he/him pronouns. I'm helping the Office of Equity build its legislative program this legislative session. The office has been busy tracking a variety of bills this year, and we have many that have been identified internally or from our commission and committee partners. This week we are highlighting the following bills. House Bill 2209, Celebrating Lunar New Year. The Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs has made House Bill 2209, prime sponsored by Representative Tai, a legislative priority. House Bill 2209 makes Lunar New Year a legislatively recognized day. It encourages state governmental entities, local governments, schools, colleges, universities, and cultural organizations to celebrate the Lunar New Year, and it requires the Commission to create Lunar New Year programming and resources that these named entities may use in their celebrations. House Bill 2209 makes legislative findings that acknowledge the wonderful heritage and the collective trauma of our Asian American ancestors, showing appreciation to the Asian American community that has made Washington a vibrant place for us all to call home, and efforts to build and support their communities despite the uncertainty that Asian Americans have faced at times. The legislature also highlights in its findings the solidarity and strength of the Asian American community in the face of the violent racism during the past few years, from well before and ongoing. House Bill 1541 and Senate Bill 5616, the Nothing About Us Without Us Act. House Bill 1541, prime sponsored by Representative Farivar, and Senate Bill 5616, prime sponsored by Senator Valdez, are also known as the Nothing About Us Without Us Act. These bills went far in last year's legislative session, but unfortunately didn't quite get over the finish line. This session provides another chance to see this bill become law. The Nothing About Us Without Us Act requires task forces, advisory committees, and work groups that are required to report to the legislature on issues that affect underrepresented communities, to include members who come from those communities, and for those entities to reflect the diversity of individuals with lived experience on the relevant issues. The Nothing About Us Without Us Act also requires the Office of Equity to work with our Commission partners to identify barriers to participating in these state entities and ways to increase access to and participation with the policymaking process. It also requires the Office of Equity to develop best practices for all agencies in the state to meaningfully recruit and engage individuals with direct lived experience from underrepresented communities. House Bill 2230, the Economic Security for All Grant Program. House Bill 2230, prime sponsored by Representative Peterson, creates a grant program in the Employment Security Department that requires those who receive this grant to work with communities to simplify how benefits and job training programs are delivered to those in need. House Bill 2230 highlights promoting equity, economic inclusion, and a stable financial foundation for people experiencing poverty and people who demonstrate financial need, with a focus on people of color and people in rural counties, including tribal nations. The office has worked with the Employment Security Department on this bill and is excited to see it make its way through the legislature. House Bill 2103 and Senate Bill 5955, Mitigating Harm and Improving Equity in Large Port Districts. House Bill 2103, prime sponsored by Representative Orwell, and Senate Bill 5955, prime sponsored by Senator Kaiser, requires ports with large airports, like SeaTac Airport, to address previously failed equipment in homes intended to reduce the impacts of living near a large airport and to provide other mitigation measures to those homes. It requires periodic inspections of affected properties. And notably, House Bill 2103 and Senate Bill 5955 requires that the Port District assess the likely adverse cumulative impacts of future significant actions that they take on overburdened communities and vulnerable populations who will be affected, and to consult with them about the proposed action. House Bill 2058 and Senate Bill 5964, free school lunches. Building on years of previous efforts to increase access to breakfast and lunch at school, House Bill 2058, prime sponsored by Representative Riccelli, and Senate Bill 5964, prime sponsored by Senator Nobles, require schools, with some exceptions, to provide free breakfast and lunch at every school day to any student that requests it. If passed, this change would begin with the next school year. This bill is impactful, and we will be monitoring it with interest. That's all the time we have today, but you can find more bills on our newly relaunched website at www.equity.wa.gov. We are excited to highlight the bills prioritized by our commission and committee partners in the weeks to come.